We come on the air with breaking news this morning. Pope Francis has passed away. The Vatican made the announcement just moments ago, saying the 88-year-old Bishop of Rome has returned to the house of the Father. Just yesterday, Francis made a surprise public appearance to bless thousands of people in St. Peter's Square. He then drove through the piazza on the so-called Pope Mobile. Francis also met with Vice President J.D. Vance over the weekend. The Pope had been critical, of course, of the Trump administration and its mass deportation efforts, as Francis was an advocate for migrants. The Pope had been recovering, though, from pneumonia. He was in the hospital for 5 weeks and was discharged less than a month ago. Claudio, can you take us to where you are? What is the reaction in Vatican City to this news just one day after Easter celebrations there?
First of all, it's Easter Monday, so it's still holiday here. Pilgrims, there's a lot of pilgrims here that will have come here anyway, but certainly there's a lot of people who are coming here to pray for Pope Francis after they learned the news that literally just came in a couple of hours ago. As you said, I was here 24 hours ago to report on the Easter Sunday celebrations, and people here were ecstatic to see Pope Francis, who was not scheduled to appear, to make that surprise appearance on that central balcony in St. Peter's Basilica. He looked frail, as he's looked lately, but at the same time, he was not wearing those nasal tubes that he has been using since he left hospital to help him get that intake of oxygen that he needs. So we took that as a sign that his health was improving. Also, he managed to say only a few words. He wished everyone happy Easter, and then he could barely move. So he just imparted a blessing with his hands as well. But another sign that we really thought his health was improving was that he got onto the Pope Mobile to tour St. Peter's Square and this area as well to greet the ecstatic pilgrims here. And that was the first time he's hospital more than a month ago. So we all thought seriously that his health was improving, and then we got this shocking news this morning, literally less than 24 hours later, that the Pope has died. This is also Jubilee year here, so there's more people than usual here at the Vatican at all times, especially during the Holy Week. And there's a lot of people that I can see them right now, right next to me. There's pilgrims carrying the cross. So all this is going to assume an even stronger significance for the many Catholics that are here for Holy Week. And certainly this is a special time for the Catholic Church, and certainly a special time for the Pope to have passed away. So I think people here are still kind of realizing what has happened. They're asking.
Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bashim, Yahushai, Bashim, Kadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings, salutations, as always, Yahweh, Bashim, Yahushai, Barakatham, to the sincere believers, the hopefully elect, listening and learning. All right, so news coming out today that this wicked false prophet, Pope Francis, has, allegedly going back to the spirit world, Now, me personally, it's just me speaking. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that he's actually gone. My belief is that he just exited the spotlight. He's left the stage, if you will, because in light of all of these essay scandals, that's been coming out from the Catholic Church in recent years, and everything that's been going on with Diddy and Hollywood, and people just talking stuff, getting exposed left and right. Allegedly, this guy's been sick. But as you saw in the video, he came out yesterday on that pagan holiday of Easter, which everybody was out there, with the eggs and the baskets, and the rabbit candy, which that has nothing to do with the Bible. All right, that has nothing to do with the resurrection of Hamashiach Yahushai. That's a pagan tradition, that has pretty much merged itself within Christianity, modern day Christianity, man. All right, you got all them people out there that came to pay their respects to the late Pope. All right, which all the wickedness that he's been involved in, and all the things that he's done, supporting the alphabet gang, what I'm saying, pretty much trying to set up not trying to, but being at the forefront of calling for an NWO. You know what I'm saying? All the things that this guy was doing, and all these Christians pretty much just turned a blind eye to it, because they're captured by the personality, by the stature of this guy. You know what I'm saying? But this guy's definitely a false prophet, and the Lord is not dealing with this guy. All right. But like I said, my personal belief is that he's exited the stage and that they're getting ready to do something big on the world stage. This is also another distraction, what I'm saying, that Esau is throwing out there, but this dude's probably down in a bunker somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Probably down in a bunker somewhere chilling, you know what I'm saying, just waiting on the theatrics, to blow up. All right, so right here, Pope Francis died from a stroke followed by heart failure. Vatican says Pontiff had requested simple burial without particular decoration at Rome Church rather than beneath St. Peter's. It says here, Pope Francis died of a stroke and subsequent heart failure. The Vatican has said in a statement revealing that the pontiff had requested to be buried in a simple, unadorned tomb. The 88-year-old pope, revered by millions of Catholics around the world, died at 7:35 a.m. in his apartment at Casa Santa Marta on Monday. His cause of death was confirmed through an ECG test, the Vatican said. And it's crazy because this guy just died this morning, and you already have them, coming out with the cause of death. You know what I'm saying? Well, usually that's not the case. Usually it'll take them a couple of days, or it just may have been that because he's been sick for a while, so it probably just say, oh, this is the cause of death, But as you see here, it says revered by millions. You saw in that video to where, all them Christians came out there. They were on pilgrimage and they came to pay their respects to the Pope. All right. Which they, they're completely deceived. They're completely through. All right. Because the scriptures tell you in Psalms 118 that it's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. All right. And those millions of Christian pilgrims that were out there, they trusted in the Pope more than they trust in, the true God of the Bible. Okay. It also says in Jeremiah 17, the curse be the man that trusted in man to make flesh his arm. Okay. So these people, these Christians out here, they're completely through. They're completely deceived. They have no idea what's going on. All right. And we'll show you. But again, all the, essay scandals that have been coming out of the Catholic Church in recent years, this guy had no answer for it. He didn't really make any major moves to deal with what was going on because that's what they do on the left-hand side. They like to get children, groom them, pop them, up the rectum. Okay. That's what's going on in these Catholic churches, man. And you already know that the Pope, is part of his initiation ritual that he had to get down to. And no doubt he's still getting down wherever he is if he's not truly back in the spirit world. All right. Reading on. Francis, who twice almost died when hospitalized with severe pneumonia in February, also suffered from multiple bronchitis, arterial hypertension, and type 2 diabetes. Damn. So, the Lord was plaguing him, This man had bronchitis, arterial hypertension. I know there's something dealing with the heart and type 2 diabetes, which, hey, he was up there in age. But still, it's judgment from Yahweh Bashmiel Shai, right? Because again, man, this dude was involved in a lot of wickedness, The Pope confirmed in his will that he wished to be buried at Santa Maria Maggiore Church in Rome's Escalino neighborhood, breaking with long-standing Vatican tradition. He would pray at the Basilica before and after trips overseas and last visited on April 12th. Now, it's all very strange. It's all very, perfect timing that, he was out there on, Easter, met with JD Vance, you know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, less than 24 hours later, this guy, turns up dead, you know? And matter of fact, let's do this, all right? Because there's a let's check this out real quick, because this shows you how beloved that this guy is, man. All right, and the scriptures tell you that, hey, that the world would love his own. Okay, so this dude Pope Francis was beloved by the world, even though he's wicked as hell, even though he has, many scandals behind his name. He's still loved. All right, which shows you that these people ain't right. Okay, that these people really don't hate wickedness. You know what I'm saying? They only hate wickedness when it's something wicked being done to them. You know what I'm saying? But if it's from one of their beloved idols, you know what I'm saying? Because the Pope is really like an idol to these people, But if it's coming from one of their beloved idols, they ain't got no problem with it, you know. All the Pope got to do is come out with a PR report, you know what I'm saying? Come out with a statement and say, oh, it wasn't me, or, we're gonna investigate this and that, and nothing ever happens, But you still get all this love. Look, check that out, going through the church with this guy's picture. This guy was a complete demon, you know. And Pope in Latin means father, if I'm not mistaken. But this guy's not no damn father, man. This dude is against the Most High, and he's against the Son. This dude is an anti-Messiah, and the biggest one at that. Because the Catholic Church, has been responsible for pushing that ubiquitous lifestyle worldwide, saying, changing the stance and saying, oh, the Most High doesn't have a problem with sodomites and same-sex marriage and all of this. You know what I'm saying? This guy was pushing that heavy. All right? So no wonder that the Lord was plaguing his ass with all kind of disease and ailments. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing about Esau, man. See, Esau picks up the Bible, but then he directly goes against it. And that's why the judgment for Esau is going to be so great, because Esau knows better. Okay? Esau knows what the Bible says when it comes to certain things, but again, he's the man of sin, so he's going to directly go against the Heavenly Father's word because he's rebellious. Okay, this is the spirit of Cain, coming back in the earth, man, through these Edomites. So you see they making murals and having services for this guy, R.I.P. This is madness, man. See, this dude really, this is all witchcraft. All this is witchcraft. And that's that enchantment that these devils like to pour out on the minds of the people. You know what I'm saying? With that false religion of Christianity. Look at that, man. People crying. You got millions of people out there. This is how much love that the Pope get. All right, but let one of the prophets die. People gonna be celebrating like their favorite team just won the Super Bowl, man. But the Pope dies, and he gets all this love. But hey, it is what it is, man. That's just how it goes. But when you go here, right, check this out. For survivors of clergy SA in PA and beyond, Pope Francis changed little. All right. So for all this stuff that was going on within the Catholic Church, look at this nigga, man. Look at this nigga. Oh, man. But so like, let me go back. Where was I at? Okay, here we go. Slovakia. So it says here, in 2018, Pennsylvania became the epicenter of the Catholic clergy SA crisis, with the release of a statewide grand jury report detailing decades-old concealment of the systematic. See, so this thing went from the top to the bottom. Okay, this thing was systematic. All right, so this thing was pretty much ingrained in the fabric of the Catholic Church. You know what I'm saying? This was a way of life. Okay, that's what it means when it says systematic. All right. So they had this thing set up to where, they would bring, young children into the church and they would groom them. All right. And, it was all kind of wickedness that's going on. All right. It's happening in the Vatican still to this day. All right. And in these other Catholic churches, man, like, this is a culture among the Catholics. All right. Systematic abuse of hundreds of minors at the hands of more than 300 priests. Scores of survivors of abuse across Pennsylvania look to Pope Francis, widely considered a church reformist, to bring about transformative and substantive change in the church that could lead to healing and closure for the many broken adults who had suffered at the hands of the priests. But what happened? For many survivors of clergy SA, that day never came. You see that? So you have, thousands, no doubt millions of children that, grew into adults that went through the Catholic Church that have been, violated in a multitude of ways. And there was never no type of justice that was brought. All right. And these things were brought to the attention of Pope Francis and nothing was done about it. Showing you that he's complicit, showing you that he's truly not a man of the Lord as he claims to be. Okay. Because he stood idly by when he was aware that all this wickedness was going on. All right. But yet, as we saw in that last, couple slides, that this man is beloved, okay, by the people around the world, man. And especially among, Northern Kingdom Jake, man. You know, Mexicans and South American, hey, man, they're big into the idolatry of Christianity. Okay. It has a spell on our people, man. You know, and even 2/3 Jake, you know what I'm saying? Judah, so-called black man, black woman, more so the black woman, you know what I'm saying? But they got that Christianity demon on them as well, but this thing has pretty much become a culture, amongst Jake, man, to the point where they worship the Virgin Mary, you know what I'm saying? And they got the relics and all the idols and stuff like that. We not supposed to be doing that. But again, our people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Like our people have a zeal, but it's not according to knowledge. It's not according to the truth. You see, but yeah, you see, all these SA cases that came out in the Catholic Church and nothing was ever done about it. So you just got, millions of people walking around just abused, never received no type of justice. All right. And Pope Francis, he's responsible for that, man. And that he was getting down his damn self. Okay. That dude was a mo. But check this out right here. All right, because there's something called the prophecy of the popes, okay, in which, according to the prophecy, which goes back to the 1100s, all right, this dude, Pope Francis, was the last pope that would, reign before the end of the world would come. All right, so we're going to read this right here. This is from Open Christian Education. It says, according to the prophecy, the 112th and final pope would be Peter the Roman. All right, Pope Francis is indeed the 112th pope on Malachi's list, while his birth name is Jorge Mario Bergoglio, not Peter. Some draw connections because his father's name was Peter. However, it's important to note that this connection to Peter likely stems from Catholic tradition claiming Apostle Peter as their first pope. All right, which that doesn't really make any sense because, although, the Apostle Peter was the rock of the church, you know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with him being the last pope, okay? So that's all, just trying to throw that out there to throw people off, man. But this whole list, this pope list, man, because we know that these devils run on agendas and, these agendas run for hundreds of years, okay? And when you actually read up in this article, it tells you that from the time that the list was made in the 1100s, all the popes that have came about have been accurate to that list. You know what I'm saying? I think after like the sometime in the 1500s. You know, it was the popes became more obscure, either because of name changes or, you know, they may not have come at the exact time. But Pope Francis is indeed the 112th pope that this came about, and now he's gone. All right, so who's gonna replace him? Hmm? Now you know that these, you know, because they have a thing called the conclave, in which they, you know, come together. You know what I'm saying, and they choose a new pope. All right, but whoever they gonna put up as the pope now, it's all set up. You know, it's all you know, chosen. You know, just like how the U.S. presidents are chosen. You know what I'm saying? They're selected, not elected. Same thing with the popes. They're not selected, they're elected. Okay, and they pretty much groom whoever's going to be the pope from the time that they're born. All right, to when they got to step into that position. You know, so reading on, it says yeah, likely stems from Catholic tradition claiming Apostle Peter as their first pope, a claim lacking biblical and historical evidence. Exactly, as scholar Winnell demonstrates. Francis's papacy was featured unprecedented has featured unprecedented interfaith dialogues, calls for global unity, okay, which is an NWO, which he was definitely calling for, which is against, again, which is anti Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, okay, because the Lord is not with bringing all nations together. And if he was, then he would have left the Tower of Babel alone, okay, but what did the Lord do? He confounded the Tower of Babel. He confused the languages, and the tower ceased to be built. All right, so the Lord is not about unifying all nations, man, because all that's going to come of it is wickedness and pride. All right, but these people of the world, you know what I'm saying, they're all about unity. You know what I'm saying, they're all about coming together in that Tower of Babel spirit. You know, let's all unite against the Most High. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, you brothers probably see on the back of some cars from time to time where they got that coexist bumper sticker, where it's like the Islam and the you know, Christian cross and the Hindu and the, you know, all that other stuff, like, you know, have all religions coexist. Again, the Lord is not with that, but that's what the Pope was about. You see, it says, yeah, calls for global unity and progressive theological shifts. Okay, approving, you know, same sex, you know, marriage, you know, approving the alphabet gang, you know what I'm saying? Not doing anything about the essay that was inside the church, you know what I'm saying? You know, pretty much just getting further and further away from the Bible, okay? That's what this guy's responsible for. Raising concerns among traditionalists that he is preparing the way for a one world religion, an idea closely tied to the false prophet of Revelation 13 and 11 through 18. Yeah. And you know, the scriptures speak about the beast and the false prophet, which the false prophet is the Vatican, okay, which is pretty much the religious center of this beast system, Rome. All right, because when you deal with Esau's rule, you know what I'm saying, he has a military, you know, focus. You know what I'm saying, he has a spiritual aspect. You know what I'm saying, and it was one more. Is it spiritual, military, and it's like, I'm kind of tired. It's slipping my mind right now, but you know, with the whole religious aspect, which he uses with the Vatican, and even these other religions Esau will use as well. You know, it's all used for the purpose of witchcraft and enchanting people, and you know, just putting people in a mindset to be against the Most High, to not stand for righteousness. You know what I'm saying? So that's how Esau gets down. The text of Saint Malachi's prophecy regarding the final pope is translated from Latin, reads, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations, and when these things are finished, the city of seven hills, Rome," okay, which, you know, modern day America, you know, would be that, you know, city of seven hills, all right? The DC, you know, Washington DC, I believe, was built upon seven hills. You know what I'm saying? So that's going back to, modern day America, which is the revival of the Western Roman Empire, will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The final prophecy is notably more detailed than the brief phrases used for previous popes in Malachi's list. All right, so the whole prophecy of this last pope to come that would usher in the end of the world, you know what I'm saying? That could very well be what this is. You know what I'm saying? Why this guy is not around in the spotlight anymore. Also, Klaus Schwab is also stepped down from being the head of the WEF. All right. Not to say he has no influence, but he's not in the public light anymore because something big is getting ready to happen. There's about to be a big shift that's about to take place, and these devils, you're not about to see them at the forefront no more. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing like how you had Dr. Fraudchi years ago in 2020 when the whole, pandemic, what I'm saying, was up and running, which that thing was a whole psyop. But he was all over the news. Now you ain't heard about this dude in like 2-3 years. You know what I'm saying? But really that dude should be under the jail, man, for the amount of crimes that he committed. But these devils are not going to hold themselves accountable, and it would seem that they're avoiding judgment. All right, but they're being reserved for the final judgment. Okay, in which the Lord is going to put hands on these devils, man, and going to put them in chains. They're going to be the first fruits of slavery in the kingdom of heaven. That's what they're being reserved for. All right, so this whole thing about the Pope and being gone, who knows? But I'm just saying that my personal belief is that this guy is somewhere in a bunker because all hell is about to break loose. You know what I'm saying? He pretty much got the order like, hey, now it's time to leave, the public eye, and we're gonna set up this Peter the Roman, whoever this is. You know what I'm saying? So this is Colossians chapter 2, and verse 8. It says, "Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit." Okay, which the Pope spoiled many people through philosophy and vain deceit, and still destroyed to this very day because they're mourning his death. All right. If they were truly tapped into the spirit of Yahweh Bashmil Shai as they claim to be, then they would be able to see through his deception. They would be able to see that he's not a man of the Lord. And that's evident through the many, anti-Hamashiach, anti-Yahweh Bashmil Shai policies that he implemented within the church during his tenure. Okay, directly going against the Bible, man, like just straight up blaspheming the Lord. All right. After the tradition of men, which Christianity, the Catholic Church, is a tradition of men. It's not based on the Bible. It claims to be based on the Bible. When we really go into it, all right, because he was out there on an Easter Sunday, okay, which again, let's go to this right here. Let's get this real quick, right? The origins of Easter and the Easter bunny, because some of our people don't know the origins of of these things. You know what I'm saying? The holiday, the so-called wicked holy day of Easter, going back to Ishtar. You know what I'm saying? And how them Edomites was drinking rabbit blood, and eventually they drank it so much to where the rabbit blood became a part of the DNA. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they revere the rabbit, because rabbits are very fertile creatures. You know what I'm saying? They reproduce very fast. So they honored that. Now, yeah, check this out right here. It says, "So where did the tradition of an egg-toting Easter bunny come from? The first reference can be found in a German text dating to 1572 AD. Do not worry if the Easter bunny escapes you. Should we miss his eggs, we will cook his nest." The text reads, "But it wasn't until the tradition made its way to the United States via the arrival of German immigrants that the custom took on its current form. By the end of the 19th century, shops were selling rabbit-shaped candles, which later became the chocolate bunnies we have today." And they're not telling you in here that they were drinking rabbit's blood. Okay, that's what they were doing. Where was I at? Okay, yeah, Salaki. The chocolate bunnies we have today, and children were being told the story of a rabbit that delivers baskets of eggs, chocolate, and other candy on Easter morning madness. In many Christian traditions, the custom of giving eggs at Easter celebrates new life, right? Which that, would falsely coincide with the resurrection of Yahweh Shai, okay, which they would say, oh, you know, Yahweh Shai came back to life, so they, merged that with the whole thing of, the egg and all of this, okay? So Christianity is nothing more than pagan traditions merged loosely upon the Bible. That's why the scriptures refer to America, the daughter of Babylon, as the mother of all harlots. Okay, pretty much what you have here is you have all of the ancient pagan traditions, the satanic traditions and customs of the ancient, Babylonians, the Assyrians, all the ancient empires, Rome, Greece, they've all come back today in one, repackaged form of this new age philosophy, okay, which permeates throughout America and really throughout all the nations, but mainly, the main hub of it is here in America, Babylon the Great, So this is why you have these pagan traditions, Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, so all these things of which the Lord tells us not to deal with, they're big in this society, man. You know what I'm saying? And they groom you from a child to accept these things. So that when you get older, it's like, this is what we do, like this is all we know. This is what we've grown up with. All right. But call Lord Yahweh Shai that the Lord has called us out of the world and to put off these traditions, man, to come back into the truth, because these things had our minds destroyed. All right. Yeah, for Christians, the egg is a symbol of the tomb in which the body of JC, or as the world calls, but Yahweh Shai was placed. While cracking the egg represents Yahweh Shai's resurrection. In the Orthodox tradition, eggs are painted red to symbolize the blood Yahweh Shai shed on the cross. So you see how they try to merge, the biblical accounts with pagan traditions, and this is what you have in the religion of Christianity. See that's why we don't deal with Christianity, man, because Christianity really don't follow the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The most widely practiced customs on Easter Sunday relate to the symbol of the rabbit, Easter bunny, and the egg. As outlined previously, a hare was a symbol associated with Easter or Ishtar, representing the beginning of springtime. Likewise, the egg has come to represent spring, fertility, and renewal. You see that the egg is a symbol of fertility and of renewed life. It goes back to the ancient Egyptians and Persians. You see that? The mother of all harlots, man. They take the ancient, pagan ways of these past societies, and they put them all in one. In America, these different religions, who had also the custom of coloring and eating eggs during their spring festival. In ancient Egypt, an egg symbolized the sun, while for the Babylonians, the ancient Sumerians, the egg represents the hatching of the Venus Ishtar, who fell from heaven to the Euphrates. All right, so these traditions of men, the Lord told us not to follow. Okay, but you have the Catholic Church, and all these other churches, Baptist, Presbyterian, so all these churches come out of the Catholic Church, man. So they're all the children of the Catholic Church. This is why they practice the same traditions. Some of them might do it a little differently, but at the core of it, it's all the same belief. You know what I'm saying? They all come from the same mother, if you will. All right, so that's enough of that. You get the point. Going back to Colossians 2 in verse 8. After the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. You see? So we're not supposed to be led astray, to be spoiled through the philosophy and vain deceit that exists within this world, man. And that's what the Pope was pushing. You know what I'm saying? He was pushing that vain deceit and false philosophy. Okay? He wasn't pushing Yahweh Bashmo Shai. See, he was pushing that of his own belly, and even further than that, those of his handlers, okay, which is mainly to deceive the masses of the people so that they can be in subjection under the devil and he can continue to rule. All right. Now you go to Revelation 19, it tells you about the beast and the false prophet. Okay, Revelation 19 and 20. Doom of the beast and the false prophet. Revelation 19 and 20. And the beast was taken, which the beast refers to modern day NATO and the EU, which is the revival of the Western Roman Empire. Okay, the ancient Western Roman Empire, which fell in the 400s, came back during the 1400s, and to this day have been ruling. Okay, Esau. All right, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the MOTB, the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire, burning with brimstone. All right, so the beast and the false prophet, okay, are going to be consumed with fire. Okay, they're going to be destroyed, man. So if this dude Pope Francis really is gone, like if he really is back in the spirit world, then he's waiting for his judgment. He's waiting to be judged. Okay, but if he's not, then he's gonna be reserved for when the nukes hit. All right, he's gonna be reserved for when the nukes hit, and he's gonna meet Yahweh Shai either way. So either way, this guy is still through. You know what I'm saying? And all those that follow him are also through. You see? So this just coming out, I want to touch on that real quick. This just being another distraction, but there is something big coming as well, because these devils are talking about a lot. But yeah, just wanted to make that a quick lesson out. I'll be back in a few with another lesson, Lord willing. And until next time, Lord willing, shalom to the elect, come Shalom, Bible Ball, shalom.